So I guess let's start. Hello everyone, and welcome to my talk. I know it's been a very long day probably, and most of the people already left. We are quite a small group of people, but I hope you get to learn something today, or we could discuss some interesting stuff together. So before we go ahead to the presentation, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Masoud Ahmadi. I work with Valtech as a solution software engineer and also solution architect. I'm based in France, Paris. I have more than 8 years of experience with Sitecore. Generally, I have more than 12 years of experience in the IT world, which is most of it is about Sitecore. You might be curious why a solution engineer, software developer is talking about marketing. I have asked myself the same question a lot of times, but it's okay sometimes for the guys from the engine room to come upstairs and look outside and see how does the world out there looks. And at the same time, things that we suggest might not be the best, but it's certainly doable and probably more optimized. So let's look at the agendas we have for today. We are not many in the room, but has anybody done personalization in a real website at a production environment? All right. Good. So great. There are some people who have already done personalization, so you're already familiar with this term, so we're not going to focus much on it, but we're going to just go through it, how it looked like. Why is it important? They have done a few researches that shows that this personalization is no more just a nice thing to have, but it could be even more. And then steps into personalization, how we could start from nothing to something really interesting, and the ultimate goal of personalization. And then going to be the interesting part, which is lab profiling, and I will explain to you. This is going to be interesting not only for your personalization, but maybe for your personal life as well. And finally, I'm going to show a little bit of a CDP and maybe how this lab profile looks in a website. So, well, before we start, let's have a quick look at this little photo I have here. I asked Dolly to generate me an image of a waiter serving food to a client and ask him if he wants a usual. And for some reason, it's created me that. It's not that bad. It sort of shows the reason. It can't put a text in there. I don't know where that root suits, blah, 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 come from. But it sort of reminds me of how personalization is at some website at the moment. Some broken thing that does the job, but not a great one, but still not a bad one. But personalization to us is not something new. You always been to a restaurant that people know you. You have already been there. They serve you the same food. You don't have to explain this stuff. They give you the table. It just feels great. This is personalization or real life. But in online world, it changes a little bit. So why is it important? Of course, when you go to a restaurant and that's all those things are already preset for you, it's not just a nice feeling. You know, you feel like you are wanted. You have the sense of loyalty in there. But it's actually a little more than that. It's not just about the feeling. This is the survey or the research was done by McKinsey & Co. a year after the COVID. And what they figure out is that consumers are not just asking for personalization as a nice thing to have. They demand it. They want it. 75% of the consumer have said that they tried a new shopping behavior after the pandemic. I'm sure many of you have done the same thing. I have never bought a clothes online before COVID, but now I don't even go to the shops anymore. So a lot of things has changed. It's for a lot of you have probably have done the same thing. And of course, this survey was done in the US, but it's applicable to the rest of the world, I believe, as well. And 71% of the consumers, they expect personalization. So if they come to your site, you don't have it, they will be like, if they're using it, they're probably very loyal, or you have something that the others don't. So that's a demand, that's a need for the market. And 70% 6% of the consumers get frustrated if you don't have it. Like, you thought, like, yeah, if I show them some offers, if it's like personalization, it's great, but no, it's not just that. They want it. If they have came to your site, they've been doing purchase on your site a lot, and you are not treating them as a person, as a loyal customer, you're probably missing a lot of things. There are more into it. You might think that for the first time customer, it might be important to see something interesting. You follow them around, want to get to know them. But it's only 76% of the consumer who wants, it's the only part that they want is the first purchase. But with personalization, you can get 78% of the consumer to do a repurchase. Once you bought something, you get a follow-up, you get more, you get discounts, offer, and you do a repurchase, and that is also something wanted. And another interesting fact in this data sheet is 78% of our consumers are more eager to share a website or recommend this product to someone else should they have a personalization. Like, they have felt great with working with this website, and they recommend it to their friends, and their friends will use it too. And they have observed that about 40% increase in margins of sale with personalization. So you might be thinking, yeah, that button looked better in my website, attract more people, but no, this 40% is not something we could just neglect. And this is one of the reasons I came out of the engine room and I want to explore more on this thing, because I believe soon in the future, this is going to be the only most important thing you might have in your website. And there are already some very good e-commerce websites out there that they are doing it so greatly that you might think it's hard to catch up with them, but still doable. And they, of course, raise the bar high, so if you are getting into it, you need to do it properly. And as good as a good personalization can increase your sale, a bad personalization can ruin your reputation as a brand. So it's very important how you tackle this topic. So the steps to personalization, well, of course, when you have a very nice, shiny site, you like everything working, functioning, you have no personalization. You focus on functionality of the website. That's where you begin. But slowly, you want to do segmentation. Segmentation is when you want to divide your user into a less broad perspective. You want to have, like people who are coming from this country, you want to serve them a different content based on the situation, based on the news, based on the origin of these people. You want to just, smaller down the type of content to push to a certain people. That's called segmentation. And as you go ahead, you reach to persona-based. This is very similar in Sitecore XP. Have anyone done personalization using Sitecore XP? You guys done? Have you guys used personas?
Sorry?
Have you guys used personas in Sitecore XP?
Yeah.
Wow. That's perfect, because to me that was the very sell point of Sitecore. This was a great thing that Sitecore was selling, but everybody was scared of using it. It was way damn too complicated. Content editor would go crazy doing it. The developers would have a hard time to debug or see what's going wrong when things doesn't work. But the main thing that we could achieve with Sitecore XP was these personas. Personas are when you name a group of clients with a certain name, you categorize them, and you change your marketing automation based on these personas. Like, they usually use the name like Peter, Karen, I don't know, they give it a name, but it usually talks about a certain person that has to fall into a certain marketing automation, and then you want to take them along the process to make your final goal, whether it be a purchase or whatever you are providing in your website. Then the later stage is macro segments. That's when you even smaller down your personas, is even more than that. You get to know more your customer. You have more understanding of who they are, what they do, what they like. And the lastly is the individualization. That's the ultimate goal. When you know your client as a person, you have very personal data of these people and you know them, like you can reach to them directly as a one-to-one, and you could send maybe an offer only for these people. That's individualization. And that's the ultimate goal. A few websites I can say they have reached there, like most of the websites that are scaling well in personalization are those businesses that are actually a software product, like Booking.com. Booking.com is a website for sale, and the main product is their website, so they invest heavily in this. And some of the other brands, like Air France, they've been doing this for a long time. They had this in their system, and when they brought it online, they have everything set up and ready, and they just made the best use of it. So once you decided on which part of this personalization you want to do, you want to go big or small, well, obviously it's better to start small. This is very like agile based. If you have done development, this is iterative thing. You don't go big from the first day. It's probably not the best idea. You need to train your people. You need to, even your client have to get adapted to this scenario, right? So you start understanding what sort of people you have on your site, who comes to your site, what are they like. You need to understand them. We're going to look a little bit on this later on. When I show a little bit of a demo, we're going to say how we could gather this information. Once you have that data, you start executing. You might want to start with segmentation, slowly do personas or go more. And of course, you iterate. You need to get feedback. You need to see whether that's what you did worked or not, and then eventually bring it forward, or you might even roll it out and you say no more. It didn't go well. We did horribly. Let's just leave it at that. This is the McKinsey & Co. They didn't just left it at those data. They went further and said, okay, a lot of people want personalization, but what is it you want? What is it you're looking for? The first and most important thing that came on top of it, I don't think is really visible on the slide, but I'm going to read it out loud. Make it easy for me to navigate in the store and online. So I think it's normal. You go to a website, you just don't want to go through the very horrible, a lot of internal, I don't know, like very complicated navigation to reach what you want. You want it to be accessible. When you do personalization, you might even want to bring the thing that you think this person might be interested right in the homepage in front of him, without him having to go through your search or navigation links or whatsoever you have. To me, as a consumer, not as a software engineer, this is something I would be happy to see in a website I go to. Second interesting thing that they wanted is give me relevant product or service recommendation. This is more for those who provide services. Maybe you went to an insurance website, you bought a loan insurance, and then automatically you should know that this person who bought a loan insurance for buy a house or a car is probably next thing they're going to do is they're going to look for insurance for that car or the house they bought. So you need to know that, and you need to approach them. You need to provide them some bundles, offer, whatever, to keep these customers. So this is demanded, and I think it's also useful. There are a lot of things. We're not going to go through all of them, but in this presentation, I'm going to focus on just a few points of it. One is tailor messages to my need. Like, when you communicate to me, I always hated those bulk emails that comes to your email. It says, dear sir or madam, this is what we have, go buy it. This is I think is throwing a I don't know, like a stone in the river, hoping it hits some target. You might get some traction if your email is just great, but what if you make it specifically for that person? Call by the name, speak the same language, refer some personal stuff, and make it interesting. Of course, that makes me more interested. I want to read that. I don't want to read that text that you send it to everyone hoping somebody will get it, right? Then the second point that I'm going to talk about is the personally addressed communication to me. I'm going to talk about the way we could make this text interesting for the user. And lastly, engage and onboard me when I buy for the first time. So when you come to the website first time, you shouldn't get overwhelmed. It should become easier to grasp things. And I'm going to have an example later on that we're going to have a look at. So here is the interesting part that I was promising you, the lab profiling and the language and behavior profiling. So recently I stumbled upon this book. It's a very interesting book. It's called The Words That Change Minds, right? Written by Rose Shelvet. A very interesting book for personal use and also for marketing. This is based on a specific application of neural languages programming, or NLP. NLP is not something new. It's been around since mid-70s, created by somebody named Roger Bailey. And what they did is they did an analysis of the process used by very highly successful communicator. And what they came up with, they understood that if I pay close attention to the way you speak, to how you behave linguistically, I could gain an understanding of your neuralistic behaviors. Just let me put it in a simple way. Just the way you act, I can gain an understanding of how you make up your experience to be excellent, mediocre, or just horrible. I gain an understanding of your mentality. I can guess how you like things done for you. So I learned it. We're going to talk a little more about it to just clarify it. But in this book, she introduces 14 patterns, but most of them are applicable for marketing. She also talks about how to use this pattern to influence people. And for each pattern, based on which one they fall into, they going to talk about the influencer language. Influencer language is the keyword you use to really attract these people or manipulate them. Of course, that's not what we want to do, but we want to do effective communication. So we're not going to talk about the 40 patterns. I chose a few of them that I think is applicable for a personalization purpose, and we're going to briefly look into them and see what they are. The first pattern that she talks about is motivation. She says people fall into two categories. Either they're proactive or they're reactive. Proactive people are the people who make the initiative to go out there to do something. They are the leaders. They are the guys who go out and want to do stuff. And you might have seen "Just Do It" is something that comes from Nike. You have heard it from them. This is very specifically for proactive people. I don't know if they have chosen this name on purpose or this slogan on purpose, or it was just a mistake, but this aim only for this category of people who want to do stuff. But the second category, they are reactive people. Reactive people are a little laid back. They wait around. They see how the others behave first. They let the other take the initiative, and they follow along as things pass on. And the words they use is like, think about it. Maybe I'm going to see. They take their time. So this, I couldn't apply it to any personalization. Of course, you could have this information. You could find out this about your client and then tailor your messaging based on whether they fall in this category or not. But even your content, you could change the tone based on this. You need to find out if your website has this sort of text in it, you will attract this sort of people. The second category that I want to talk about is criteria. Criteria is actually more is about hot buttons. When you know someone personally, you know them like is it your partner, your parents, your brother and sister, there's few words that triggers them for good or for bad. Like I had a girlfriend, every time she was angry, I used to ask her, do you want ice cream? She was getting a little happier, so I knew this hot button. And well, this is actually happens on human and also on animals. I had a dog, I say, walk, she gets triggered and she gets very excited. So criteria talks about like when you could change the emotion of a person with just saying a word or a sentence. And this is very useful for those salesperson in the stores when you go. This is something they've been doing for a long time. You might not notice it, but they do it. They analyze your way you walk, the way you talk, and they use those hot keywords to trigger you. But we can't get that close to the client on the website, so what we're going to do is we're going to help them make a decision. When you talk about criteria, you say that somebody might come to your website, they might not know exactly what they want, so you need to help them make a decision. You shouldn't let them get lost, or you don't want them to bounce, you want them to stay in your website. So the demo that I'm going to show you later on is an example of how this criteria could be applicable in a website. And third pattern is direction. People could be toward or away from. Toward person is a person who wants to achieve a goal. They came to your website, they want to buy a product, you need to make it accessible for them. They go directly for it and get it and they go. But away from people are trying to avoid the problem. They had an issue, they broke their sink maybe, they come into your site, they want to buy that item. So when they are in this context, in this mood, they want a different way of talking. You don't want to excite them. This guy is trying to get away from a problem. You don't tell them, yeah, let's do it, let's fix the sink. No, that doesn't work. The guy is in a... but of course, something you need to understand that if you are in this category at this moment in this room, in the next room you might be in a different context. So, you know, it changes based on the website, type of product you are selling, type of work you are doing, line of work you are in. So this changes. Well, does that make sense? Am I going too fast? Okay. This is a lot theory. I mean, I hope I can convey some message about this, but we're going to see it in action a little further. Maybe that makes more sense. There is one more category, which is source. A source is the way people make a decision. If you are an internal person, you don't really care what the other think. You make it your own thing. You decide you like something, you buy it. You don't care what the other think. That's an internal person. But the external person constantly demand the other's opinion. You read the notes, you read the comments, you want to read more articles, you check the website which did the review, you trust them, you get all this information and you make a decision. So these are the people you might want to look out in your website. If somebody is spending 10 minutes reading the comments, this is a very clear indication that this person is an external person. So should you see that, you want to give them more data. You want to promote that article that you wrote about this topic. So push it to him, let him read it, let him understand it. Don't let him leave the website, go to the Google and try to do search that he might never come back. So that way you keep him interested and you don't let him bounce. So let's maybe see this in action. Of course, many of you have ridden bikes. You know that there are different types of bikes. You might think, okay, it's a road bike, it's a city bike, or just, I don't know, a simple bike. But if you are purchasing a bike, and you go to a professional website, you will understand that bikes are not just this. It's a lot more. Well, let me bring this to the screen. All right. So this is a website. I like this brand. It's very good. They're a German bike manufacturer that they only sell online, and they're pretty good. And as soon as this is a road bike category, and you come in, first thing you see is that there is an aero bike. But you might not understand what it is, but you click on it, you go inside, you have a look. Oh, I like the bike. Everything looks great, perfect. And then you go back again to the category. You see this one is an endurance bike. I was just looking for a little road bike. What is all this thing? I have no idea. So I just look at it, I look at the color, I see this one is a little different from the other one, but at the same time, I don't know, I'm like, okay, maybe there are two types, we all good. You scroll down, you see more stuff, and then again you come and you see, boom, I have an ultimate bike. Well, this just become just too much information, as you know. Well, ideally, the god of demos should have been with us, and we should have seen the pop-up button that is supposed to appear here, but seems like it's not going to help us. Let us see if it's going to do it. Well, no. Maybe I have cleared this. Well, seems like god of demos are not with us. Well, let's go back to the slide, and that's what it's going to look like. Ideally, this thing should pop up, and what it does is says, okay, I have seen you seeing different bikes, you have went through different bikes, you seem a little lost. I profile this guy as an explorer, someone who gets lost. And I'm popping up this message to them telling, okay, this is a video you might want to watch to understand how different type of road bikes are there. And if you look at more of those, I will show you another video saying that, okay, now that you are interested in aero road bikes, this is what you need to learn about them. And if you want to take a look at the SUGCON CDP, let me maybe duplicate my screen. That's going to be easier. Right, so if you look into the SUGCON CDP, this is basically an experience I have created, and it only runs on a live audience. So this happens on every user that comes to your website, and you're going to process every one of them on the fly. And you will see something like this on your website that will tell you, this is basically, I have two versions of my personalization. This is basically what every user goes through. So they come into the website, they go to a set of logic that I have written that's programmable. In that logic, I have written a very naive code. In case the guy has seen a different type of bikes, I'm going to show them a pop-up message for this. And then I have very little categories. I think this will be clear if you look at it. I basically said if the guy looked at the Explorer, which is the profile I selected for this guy, I push them the offer of Explorer. And if there are aero or road enthusiasts, I'm going to push them an offer of road bike. But this was programmed by myself, very basic and not very interesting. At one point, this is going to go out of hand. You're going to have more profile, you're going to have a lot of videos, and you're going to have a lot of things to take care of. And in that point is that this is not going to be very useful, this simple programming for you. And in that point, what you want to do is you want to, instead of directly showing from the simple code to the decision table, you want to integrate an AI. This AI can be trained based on the data you collected on the CDP, and that profiling going to be done automatically by the AI and the ML that you have written. This is going to be simpler using SUGCON CDP because you collected all those data and you're going to pass it there. Well, of course, that AI part is not yet covered by SUGCON CDP. They haven't integrated it yet, but it seems like there are some plans for them to do it. But at the moment, it's just a connection you do to another AI model that you have, and you could use it. So if, well, now I can extend it again. All right. Slide. All right, good. So this was more about criteria. It was how you could promote content to the guy who came to your site and got lost, overwhelmed with that many information they received. Now, let's look at how that direction pattern can be put in place. This is the piece of content I have took the screenshot from a website that is selling makeups and cosmetic products. And the way they have written the text is whether you want to achieve a matrifying blah, blah, blah. I'm not going through that jargon. It's a very well written, but if you notice the text achieving is for the people who are toward from. When you want to achieve something, you are a category of the guys who have a goal. And the keyword you use are the benefit or attains, obtain, have, gain, take. These are the words that attract people who are toward from. But I can rewrite the very same phrase and make it away from. I change it slightly. I said, get rid of imperfection, dried and irritated skin, blah, 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 and you gain a poreless skin. At this moment, I have no idea what poreless skin is, but you could gain it or avoid it, I don't know, using this text. So I basically changed the phrase, changed the text, and I use the word like avoid, steer clear of. So when you use that and the person in your site is in that context, in that mood, get more intrigued with this text, right? You speak the same language, that person, that's exactly what they want. So how can you do this? How can you, based on the research that they have done, people fall about 40% in one category and 40% in other category, and the 20% are mix of two. But of course, there are extreme side of it. Some people could be very toward, some people could be very away from. You could just get in between and say, well, I'm going to do one of those, I'm going to stick to one of those, or I'm just going to cover both of them. But you could actually do more. You could understand the people come to your site. You could run an A/B testing. You could have a two version of the same component, write the text in a different way, and see the performance. See how people interacted more or less, and then based on that performance, you want to choose one text or another. But this, again, is not that ultimate level of personalization. You somehow adapted your content to the user, but, well, not that bad, not that bad. Well, if you trust, you have a very loyal client, people come to your website, you could ask them to fill a questionnaire. And this is them giving you directly exactly what sort of person they are. And this questionnaire is already prepared by them, by lab profiling people. You need to adapt the question to your scenario, and then you could ask them to fill up the questionnaire, and boom, you already have the personality of your client. You want to keep them in CDP, and you could use them later. But how many of you are willing to fill up a questionnaire with such a very personal data, right? I personally wouldn't be so interested in filling that up, because I don't know who is sitting behind that computer going to read those, or how they're going to use it, or if they're going to sell this information. Maybe not the best idea. Well, which brings us to a very more complicated way of gaining this information. This model might produce much reliable data, but at the same time is much harder to execute. So what I'm saying is that instead of you choosing one or another, what you do is you create multiple components, and you put one away from, one toward text, you scatter things around your website, and as soon as people interact with this content, you push some events like this, which is just the data being sent to Sitecore CDP, and you say, okay, this client interacted with this component, and this component was away from text. And then you store that in Sitecore CDP. Once you store that all in Sitecore CDP, you can use a feature from Sitecore CDP called audience synchronization. Audience synchronization is a way for you to extract a set of data from Sitecore CDP, and you can push this data to a third party. It could be a file transfer, it could be an AI model, it could be a service, you written the code yourself, and with that code, you could analyze, segment, and process this data, and you want to tag your user, okay, this person seems to be very interested in away from, and you know that this guy for sure is an away from, and then you tag your user, store it in Sitecore CDP. Every time you do a personalization, you want to push a piece of content to that person, you will use that sort of text to communicate with them. Let's say, well, I have a bit of a picture of how it will look like. I have prepared this is a free maker code. I'm not sure if it interests you much, but this is how you configure this audience sync in Sitecore CDP. And once you have that, from CDP, you could use different things from Sitecore, like you want to use Sitecore SAN, whatever way you want to communicate with your user, that's going to be the way for it. Of course, you notice the person is away from or toward, but if you are Booking.com, or if you are, I don't know, like you're selling trips, and you are pushing a trip that you prepared, and it's a very relaxed, chilled beachside trip, you don't want to really write a text in a toward from. Even if your client is a toward person, you don't want to change that thing. You don't want to mix things around. Let's say you want to sell a trip that is on the side of the beach, very relaxed. You write the text for someone who wants to relax a bit. You want to get away from a normal daily life. They want to enjoy some beach time. So you adapt your text to the product that you are selling there, not to your client type. But again, it could be applicable in many ways. The more personal data you have from your client, the more you could personalize it to them. So basically this was it. This is how we could apply a well-proven fact. Well, this lab profiling has been around for a long time. They are teaching it. A lot of salespersons are using it. It has been proven effective in a normal context, offline context, but of course in the marketing has been used a lot. But I believe this could be used in personalization as well. And well, maybe next year you see me here showing you a presentation of this in place, worked or not. But for the moment, it's just a theory, and I hope you learned something from this. And if you have any question, I'm happy to answer it. No, that's of course, that's absolutely right. Like basically what you said is that it might not be a questionnaire, it might be a set of preference that you want to ask them to set. Yes, like a lot of people already do it. Netflix, when you open it for the first time, it says what sort of content you like. That is very normal because they want to like show you things you like that I'm going to give it. But to do lab profiling, to understand the personality, the questions are not that directly. So the things they ask is like, would you describe yourself as a sort of person who would like to go for the adventures, do crazy stuff? Yes or no? But if you're selling bicycles and you ask that question, yeah, maybe maybe it works. You might be able to adapt the questionnaire to those, but I'm not sure. Maybe if you did, you let me know. I would be very happy to see how that worked. No questions? Good? Thank you, everyone.